Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, talking Jims and Joes. Some of the best in the nation, hardwood or the gridiron, reside in the LBK, including reigning Big 12 Player of the Year, JT Toppin. And I've got all the great reasons as to why he should do it again in 2027.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Now, the number one sports podcast network in the world. Thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And on today's episode, we got a theme running throughout. We are talking Jims and Joes. We're going to get to a football conversation and something to digest this week as it relates to top 100 college football players heading into 2026. This is not specifically from a draft tilt, so there's a different kind of angle on this. We'll talk about some Red Raiders that show up. We'll talk about some that don't. I may make a stab at offering you my best of when it comes to this roster that still, by the way, is not actually technically all the way complete. We'll get to that coming up in just a moment. I also want to touch on something that caught some attention wrapping up last week, the OT edition of the Matador Mob mailbag. And that's where we'll begin our conversation, Chris, because as we're in a hoops-heavy frame of mind, but biding some time till the next go-round in Orlando this weekend when the Red Raiders take on Central Florida, got me thinking a little bit about some bigger picture items. We talked at large about the season and postseason aspirations yesterday. Could I even take you beyond this season on today's episode? We did actually cross this thought last week, but it was crossed again recently, the consideration of a big-time Jim and or Joe, JT Toppin, reigning Big 12 Player of the Year, possibly having even more time to spend in a Red Raider uniform in 26-27. That tingled the senses of Locked On Texas Tech Matador Mob Nation to go into the weekend, Chris. And then actually I see our head coach, Red Raider head coach Grant McCaslin, talking about this very thing with one John Rothstein. And I want to give you a chance to listen to Coach McCaslin's perspective on this, and then we'll get into the very exciting possibilities. Take a listen to Grant McCaslin.
When you evaluate your roster for next year, is trying to retain JT Toppin for another year at Texas Tech obviously going to be on the priority list if he is not obviously going to chase something in the NBA?
Yeah, John, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, I try to really not put any decisions on anybody. And I mean this because I get asked it too. And trust me, I think everybody's trying to figure out, like, man, what if I'm not this? Should I just come back? And I just tell people, and I mean this with all my heart, let's just play this thing out. Let's play this thing out to the last game. It's the reason why we won an NIT title when I was at North Texas, even though everybody thought I was already going to be the head coach at Texas Tech.
I remember that.
I'm like, the moment you try to figure out what's next and your season's not over, I just think it's an enormous mistake. And so what I hope for him is that we end up playing so well that all these guys have such great options that you get to pick whatever you want to do. And you don't have to say, well, let's just say I just would rather come back because then that's the way. And I don't even know. I mean, let's just – I don't even want that to be a part of our conversation yet. And I steer everybody away from it, even if it benefits me. I don't think it's worth doing. I'm not even going to go like, well, let's go ahead and have a deal in place so that way if you come back, like, I just want them to be like, no, pour your heart into being the best player you can be and be the best team, and let's put you in a position where you do get drafted top 3. I don't really know because who knows? I mean, well, you saw it, and I mean this. We've played 6 games or so in the Big 12 so far. If you looked at our team after 4 games in the Big 12 last year, JT wasn't even – he played like crap at BYU and Utah after we'd lost at home to UCF and Iowa State. I mean, he wasn't even good in the first 4 games. And then all of a sudden he's Big 12 Player of the Year.
Right.
I mean, I knew what he was capable of, but that doesn't mean that that's what he did. And so what I'll tell you is I think we're just really starting to figure out what we're capable of as a team. And because he's such a great teammate, I do think there will be an option for JT to come back if that's what he wants to do. We have too many great people here that love him, and he loves being here, that I do think that that's a possibility, yes. But am I hopeful? I'm not even thinking that way. I'm really connected to trying to help JT be the best basketball player he can be so he can help our team win. And I think that's really what's happening.
Certainly appreciate the even-handed, even-keeled, let it play out perspective. But does that go for podcasters, Chris? Can we dream a little? Tell me what kind of legs this thing could possibly have and maybe why.
Well, the conversation surrounding the NBA draft in Big 12 circles has never, I don't think that since I've been doing this for a long time, has ever been more prevalent than it is like this year and in recent days, weeks. And I think that's part of JT's obviously part of that conversation, but it's important to give the conversation like the scope, because what you have seen in recent weeks is you're literally going against potentially lottery picks for a lot of these teams, and JT Toppin is not involved in those conversations. Okay, you have just seen in back-to-back Saturdays what most people feel like have a chance to be top 5 picks. I'm not saying that's what will happen. Things can change. Guys can get hurt. They can improve their stock. They can hurt their stock. Whatever. Okay, but you look at a lot of consensus and a lot of the mock drafts and again, you have to understand the concept of a mock draft too. It's not the end all be all, but what it is that the outlets that put these together, they get consensus from a lot of the scouts out there. Well, all it takes is one team, and some team president can be like, I don't care what all the scouts say. This is the guy that I want. And so you can, that's where it's like, whoa, wasn't expecting that pick, and that's just because a team president did it, and all the mock drafts that everybody had seen and read and consumed were put together by people that weren't actually decision makers in some cases. Okay, so because AJ DeBonsa, Kingston Flemings, Darren Peterson, who if he plays this coming Monday in Lubbock, thought to be 1 and 2, 2 and 3 and 5, something like that. I mean, it's impressive. And Callan, it doesn't stop there. Chris Sanak, the other freshman from Houston, the 5-star 7-footer that you kind of picked on in that screen and roll that we talked about or tried to, he's thought to be a top 10 pick. Cameron Carr, who you just saw a week ago in Waco, Texas, is thought to be a lottery pick or fringe lottery pick. You haven't even seen the 2 freshmen from Arizona in Braden Burries and Koa Pete. They're mid to late first round picks. You've got Yesufu from Baylor also. So Baylor's maybe potentially sitting there with 2 first rounders. And we can go further. Josh Jefferson from Iowa State, Baba Miller from Cincinnati, thought to be PJ Haggerty from Kansas State. You haven't even seen some of these guys yet, but that's just how loaded your league is. Okay, so what does this matter to JT Toppin? Well, if you go look at a lot of this, he's late first round or early to mid second round. And I think really we could be having the same kind. I know that Grant was asked about JT there, but really the conversation is the same when it comes to Christian and JT.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. The WNBA has released its 2026 schedule featuring a 44-game regular season beginning on Friday, May 8th. The league's historic 30th season includes expansion teams Portland Fire and the Toronto Tempo, with opening weekend highlights such as Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever hosting Paige Beckers and the Dallas Wings, and a rematch of the 2025 finals between the Aces and the Mercury. In Unrivaled, Miami felt the breeze as Paige Beckers powered the breeze to a 75-68 win over the Lunar Owls, finishing with 28 points and 7 assists. She was joined by 20-year-old Dominique Malunga, who added 21 points, 8 rebounds, and became just the second player to ever dunk in an Unrivaled game. In college hoops, South Carolina handed Vanderbilt its first loss of the season with a dominant 103-74 win. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
But really, the conversation is the same when it comes to Christian and JT. I've seen a full 58 player mock draft that did not have Christian Anderson's name listed, period. I've seen another one from an ESPN one that had Christian Anderson as the 23rd pick in the draft. So this is my point. Like, you don't really know. Point being, they both could be out of here. They both could absolutely have an opportunity to return. I don't know what is most likely, least likely. It won't be cheap. But if you're flirting with late first round, early second round, and you don't really have that guarantee, it could be very financially beneficial for you to return to college with a guarantee. A guarantee. And it's funny because JT gets talked about as like this old head. I heard him phrased that way on an ESPN highlight the other day as the old guy. He's a true junior.
Right.
He's a true junior, and this isn't some scenario where he needs some court judge to rule in his favor no, he could just come back for his senior year. Imagine that. But he's been so good so early that I just think people have forgotten that. But no, I think it's a very real possibility. And I want to get to the part that Grant said about that they won't get into worrying about that right now, because while he's right, somebody has to.
Dun, dun, dun. I feel like that was almost a lean it in, file it away.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say before we got into that further, the dynamic that this presents for college basketball and college basketball fans, to me, is the best case scenario of this era, and one that I hoped for prior to this era beginning. I specifically thought, coming from the one and done experience, this may actually in some kind of way be a format with NIL opportunities, things like that would keep better talent on campus longer. And I guess it's still not maybe the top of the top shelf as far as like potential NBA draft lottery picks, but it is those really good, maybe all conference or conference player of the year players who don't quite fit that measurables box or whatever they're looking for there. So JT's in that category. And I didn't know coming into it if it'd really play out that way, Chris, but I guess we're seeing some of that, even though it may make some queasy as to why that opportunity is there. Although it's just compensation, same thing you and I are showing up for, and most people show up for every day. But yeah, that's kind of the dynamic for, I think, a sport that was sort of suffering in a way from some of those guys that were staying longer, really becoming household names beyond just because they're lottery talent, and some talent chasing something that could be a lot less lucrative and may not even work out professionally. I mean, you could talk about guys being in developmental leagues or roles or contracts that are leaving kind of star-studded roles, I guess, on the college level. And in some ways, maybe that's changed now. And I hope for, obviously, the guys I'm interested in, it's changed for the better. I guess it already has in one sense, right? Would we have even gotten this year?
Probably not. Great question. You're right. That's the one positive about that I think a lot of people, when they think about all the negatives and this and that, I mean, this is a huge. It's the really good college players that get to stay and max it out. JT is very similar. He's better, but it's very similar to like what Richie Saunders is to BYU, Milos Uzan for Houston, or Manuel Sharp for Houston. They don't feel this pressure to get out and go overseas or whatever. It's just like, stay put, man. And use every bit of eligibility that you can, because you make more money, I should say, in college with what you're doing than anything you do professionally. Maybe not, and I think they would hope that that's not the case, but they can guarantee themselves just a ton of money. And if you're Texas Tech, of course you would want these guys back. Can you make it work? Because Christian's no different. I don't really. I think that the thought is going to be they're going to be kind of in the same boat, in that possible first rounders probably get drafted, but no guarantees on anything, and they would be searching for said guarantee, because that would. But so much of the timetable will come more than likely way before, because if you remember last year, these two got done pretty quick. And while Grant is saying, well, we're going to let it play out, he's right. As a coach, you're not getting into all that, but Kellen Buffington and other folks would be, because that stuff happens. I mean, it's going to be the day after the portal opens and everything, the day after the national title game, they just changed the rule to, and then you start putting your team together. Well, it's kind of a big old matzo ball hanging out there. If I don't know if I need to replace Christian Anderson and JT Toppin, my whole organization revolves around one or both individuals, right? But typically, if you want to go through the NBA process, that is a late May, and the deadline to pull your name out is, well, and I jokingly say that kind of because, hell, it doesn't matter if you get drafted now or not. You could probably still come back to college, like we're seeing some of these rascals do right now. But I don't think that Buff or Grant, they're not going to operate in that world or care to. But so I just offer all that up to say, like, timetable, because when you start putting your team together, they have been elite at roster construction. They'll know one way or the other, in my opinion, after it winds down and all that, on kind of, is a guy coming back or not, kind of deal. And I don't know if I would envision a scenario to where, because you see what happened with Darian Williams. Hey, I'm gonna go to the league. I'm gonna go through the process, and then it's, what, I'm gonna try to come back. And I think he wanted to come back here, but they had already filled that spot. They had already spent that money and filled that role with Lawan Watts, and that ship had sailed. NC State is the benefactor. And maybe you can tweak that. I just think that's a heck of a piece to try to kind of hang around on, going, okay, maybe they come back, maybe they don't. Well, what do you do in the meantime? Or what if they don't? It could hose your whole next season. But yeah, I think there's a very realistic possibility that one or both of these guys could be back here next year. I'm not saying that, but I think some people would dismiss that immediately. And I don't think that's the case at all.
I feel like we've already learned our lesson in one sense, to not rule anything out with JT returning this season. So I will not rule anything out this time around, as we're looking ahead to that. No question about it. And you got to I guess kind of keep an eye on both situations if you're Grant McCaslin. I do like his comments and appreciate that. And he classified it, probably I'm forgetting the word, but he said major mistake, something along those lines, to allow any attention to be really devoted to those types of things while you're in season. And I feel like he's sidestepped some of that before successfully, as he refers.
Yeah, he has, his job is to worry about the here and the now. But there's a level of him too that has to. He's one of the few people in the organization that has to have an eye on the future, and that's Kellen Buffington's sole purpose. I mean, Joey McGuire would tell you the same thing. Like, I want all of my coaches worried about the game right now, the practice right now, but I have to have an eye on my organization and what things look like off into the distance, big picture, short term, all that stuff. And that's what these personnel departments are in place for, so they can help you recruit, kind of keep an eye on the portal and all those kinds of things. So anyway, it's and like, so looking at this draft stuff, I mean, like some of the stuff I've seen, Cam Boozer and Isaiah Evans, these are two lottery picks, the Duke duo. I mean, it's just amazing what you've seen. Darius Acuff, the point guard from Arkansas, he's thought to be a lottery pick. Keaton Wagler as a top 20 pick, the freshman from Illinois. You've seen all of these guys. It's just wild what is on your schedule from a top player in the sport standpoint. And you haven't even seen everything that the Big 12 has to offer, but these are thought to be like the best of the best in the draft next June, I guess. And you haven't, you're not seeing JT and Christian per se involved at the high end of that stuff, which is the point of this conversation, that they both could, absolutely be back here if this is what they wanted, because and it's got to make sense financially, and what do they want and all those kinds of things. But yeah, I could definitely see that maybe this isn't it for this duo when we get to season's end.
And for all the other guys you're mentioning, get the hell out of here. Go enjoy Sacramento or Washington, D.C. Best of luck. Man, I think for my own selfish interest, before we move on, Jemias Ramsey, Zaire Smith, in some eras bygone, I think we're having different types of runs in Lubbock with guys like that in this era. Would you agree?
Had the rules changed prior to, these are perfect examples of why it in some ways it's okay to come back and max it out here. I think you would have absolutely been able to hold on to those guys at least 3 years. I don't, Jemias wasn't exactly the biggest fan of school just in general, but Zaire felt the pressure, and he was kind of graded as had a draft grade, and I think that he made the right decision from that standpoint. But
yes, his iron was the hottest. You had to get it,
and then that was largely it. At least to this point, he's dealt with some injuries and all that stuff. So each individual has to do what's best for them. But those guys didn't have 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 million sitting here waiting on them if they wanted to play here and be a Red Raider for another year. And sometimes guys just say, you know what, I'm done with college. I just don't want to. I've done it before. I need something new. I need a new challenge. I need a new thing.
Chris, they go on to play 2 more years in international title game like Carson Beck. Even after
this is true. This is true. Yeah, this is true. But I mean, they both have a pretty good thing going here. Talking about Christian and JT, they are coached hard. I think they like it here. I think they're well compensated. I think that reportedly that's a $6 million price tag between the two of them. I don't know what that would look like with a senior version of JT and a junior version of Christian Anderson, with all that they would have done in their resume. But you can pretty much, if you were to somehow get those guys back, you would guarantee that you would be good. I mean, there's not many guarantees out there, but that's pretty much a lock. I mean, you would guarantee you're like relevant, Big 12 title contender, arguably have 2 of the best players on the floor, no matter who we're playing. I mean, all of it, and then obviously be well coached.
Inside, outside, fan favorites, jersey sellers, chair packers. I mean, it's good business for everybody. Sorry about that, Coach. We did get to looking ahead a little bit. That's on us. Thankfully, we're not on the floor, so hopefully will not impact our performance moving forward. Okay, we'll table the hoops part of that right there, Chris. But before we get out of here, I want to keep the personnel conversation alive. It is Jims and Joes, not X's and O's, if you're new to this thing, that's rowing everybody's boat. And I know this got your attention this week like it did mine on a football front. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly feel the call of the stadium. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. And with the money you save on tickets, you can then splurge on foods, drinks, gear, and more. Gametime makes it all possible. And best of all, Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get the first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. And if you're like me, you get tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal, and that's why Gametime's Zone Deals is the go-to move, since it automatically picks the best seats in your section for you at the best price. And as always, you can get a view from your seat right there in the app, so before you buy, you know exactly what you're going to see. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and football is in full force, and FanDuel's keeping you stocked with action every game day with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet only $5, and if your bet hits, you're getting $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. Any way you like it, FanDuel has you covered. Quick, easy, and secure every time. If you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. From On3, talking about a top 100 list of college football players going in to 2026. Had Red Raiders on the list. I'll give those to you now. Bryce Pollock, Sheridan Wilson, Terrence Carter, Howard Sampson, Austin Romaine, the Red Raider representatives there. Love all of those guys. It's a new love with Romaine, but I think I'm going to love you when I get to know you better anyway. Those are fan favorites. You want to talk about some that were rowing your boat to a Big 12 title? Obviously, those that are returning key contributors. I'm noticing an omission or two. Maybe you are as well, Chris. Curious if anything was standing out or surprising to you. And I'd like to offer you up, regardless of what any list says, who I feel like the number one name is for the Red Raiders rolling into 2026 in my own context in just a moment. But first, what'd you make of this group, or maybe somebody or somebody's not in the group?
Well, the first thing that I noticed, well, there was two things. There was one name that wasn't there, and then there was a name that was there. Both were surprising to me. The name that was there that I was like, good for him, and I don't disagree with it, was Sheridan Wilson. I mean, he just kind of a tip of the cap. He's the ultimate glue guy. He's kind of been a guy and I was surprised that he got some of that recognition, not because he doesn't deserve it, just because I think he's kind of been this under the radar. But see, this list isn't just pulled out of thin air. This is probably a consensus. And, when you have a top 100, well, you can get into most valuable or most talented or best fit for certain schemes, all that stuff, right? So who knows exactly what the criteria was here. But then, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything you're going to say, but then the one name that wasn't there that I thought would be was Brendan Sorsby.
Got to be the most obvious omission, right?
Yeah.
What to make of that? Because I see him NFL draft prospect lists, Heisman odds lists.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
He will start out amongst the top 8 to 14, 15 Heisman candidates. One, because he's going to be on a really good team, and then two, I think because he's a really good player. And so, I would have thought that he would have appeared on this list. Yes. I don't know if I understood why. I didn't exactly go through and look at all the quarterbacks that were listed, but he's going to be the single biggest reason that should give a Texas Tech fan, hope or feeling good about your situation for next year. Because it's, again, I was saying this earlier about Christian and JT. There's just not many guarantees in life. And I'm not saying that he's going to be an all Big 12 quarterback or the best quarterback in the sport or anything like that, but I can guarantee you that he won't suck. And I guarantee you that his floor is pretty high. And when you have those things, and it because you've seen it, we've got reps, we've got starts, we know the skill set. and it's just a matter of understanding scheme and timing and chemistry and all that stuff. I mean, it should give you a lot of hope. But I'll tell you the other names. I don't. Again, is that was your big omission? Anybody else that stuck out to
Was
you?
not, as a matter of fact. I think
Okay.
I would grant that that's the first name I thought of. Like, yo, why is he not
Okay.
on here? But
I've
there's
got
another
four
one
other
that I'd
names.
actually like
I've
to
got
bring up.
four other names. I want to know if you say one of my other four here.
How about a second team All-American up front and AJ Holmes? That's the name that I'm wondering where you at among 100 individuals in the nation.
Yeah. Okay. He was not. That's probably a glaring omission on my part. He was not on my list. I actually
Okay.
probably wrote down Mateen, the Wake Forest defensive lineman, and I just wasn't thinking about AJ Holmes. That's a great call. Here's the other ones that the newcomers are tricky to. You're kind of going off of what their draft grade would have been or where they ranked on some portal list. So you know, if we're talking about Mateen or Trey White or Adam Trick, which I think if they would have ended up on this list, it wouldn't have shocked me. But what if I throw another one out at you? And what if I tell you Jacoby Williams' name should have been on this list?
Easily on the short list, omission wise.
Yeah, I mean,
Agreed.
big time runner, receiver, returner, just juice guy. Malachi Toney will get a ton of credit and whatnot for what he did for Miami this year, and he's a year or so younger than Jacoby. But that's kind of what Jacoby Williams is. He's like a manufacturer of the touch guy, and like just get the ball in his hands. And he bailed you out. He had some of the biggest plays in your games. I mean, he had the biggest offensive play from scrimmage against Oregon. He basically turned the game. It didn't really turn it, but he set the tone when you were up in Salt Lake City with that play on the very first time you had the ball, and then so many other things in between. But yeah, that
Special
would have
teams,
been
kick return impact.
yeah,
Punt
absolutely.
return impact.
So those would have been the guys that, but the ones that were listed: Terrence Carter, Howard Sampson, Austin Romaine, Bryce Pollock, and then Sheridan Wilson. They were included. We're talking about the guys that maybe weren't included, but it's good to have, you know, some names that get the. Now, all these guys that we're talking about could easily be all conference types, easily.
No question.
So,
And I'll tell you, as far as my best, I would offer up just KC Cowan context. I got no other explanation. Don't ask any more questions. And I do believe conversations have to start defensively. I would be naming one or of these two, Bryce Pollock, AJ Holmes. And there may be somebody that comes in I'm not familiar with. They're one of these new additions that is just as good or even better. Maybe Austin Romaine or Ben Roberts are just as valuable. I think I may start with one of those two guys, Chris, if I was making my own list of top whatever Just Red Raiders going into the year. What do you think about that?
Very fair. I have no problem with it. I think Terrence Carter is that way too. I just think TC with everything that he did, and yeah, he's just it's like him and Jacoby. We talked about that a lot throughout last season. He and Jacoby were arguably two of your most valuable players or on offense, just because there was no backup for what all that they could do. You know, there was no replacement. You were kind of having to, in some ways, change who you were if you didn't have either one of them out there or either one of them available, or hey, Jacoby's ankle is a bit dinged up, or Terrence is kind of battling that shoulder problem, whatever it was. It's like, you feel like you were playing offense with one arm tied behind your back. But yeah, I think in many ways, I think Terrence Carter is that player too.
Love it. Give us your thoughts, agreements, disagreements, omissions of our own in the YouTube comments, or shoot us a text if you're a Matador Mobster. Chris, appreciate the time. Enjoyed the conversation as always, and looking forward to another go-around upcoming. Want to talk defense, so buckle down and get ready to get serious on the next one. As I mentioned, checking in on some different fronts here for Grant McCaslin and the Red Raiders as we await the next opportunity in Orlando. We'll see you then, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I promise not to be snowed in too much longer. You too. I know that we need some melting. We need some some sunshine in the 806, man. Goodness gracious. It is it's just not going anywhere. It's like I'm kind of tired of it. It was pretty, it was fun. Let me out the cage, man. Let me out.
Getting a little stir crazy, finding good ways to keep the home fires burning, but also that's sort of reminiscent of how I wound up with 2 kids in 2 years. So get us out the house and back to the routine, please. Thank you for making us a part of your routine every day. Thanks to the everydayers always being out there, and the Matador Mob. Hit our show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial if you're interested in joining that crew. Your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.